We started this conversation this morning by talking about the global coordination strategy, which we need and which is evolving and getting ready now. But in the Brain Capital Alliance, we thought that we also need to be very much focused on what's going on the ground with the centers of excellence that have emerged over the past few years around the world, in fact, and some of you represent them here on the panel. So this is how we came up with the idea of a hub of hubs. And we're very committed to actually launching it and giving it some substance. So becoming a platform for coordination, scaling, but also doing things together. So in this last session, before we go upstairs, I would like to ask you what you think about the idea. What do you think the merit of that such a hub of hubs would be? Do we need it? Are we ready for it now, or do we need more time? And how it should work. So, ladies first, Jules. Yeah.
No, you guys listen to the excellent. Damn, all right, okay. Okay, gosh. So yes, I absolutely think this is where we're heading. So perhaps just by way of context, I'm Jules, I'm CEO of Kokoro, and we do a couple of things. One is the Future Mental Health Collective, which is a group of about 175 private funders of mental health. And the other thing is we're an organizing partner in the Coalition for Mental Health Investment, which is trying to look at not just private capital, but how do we unlock all different types of capital for mental health? And I say mental health, recognizing that that plugs into the brain economy. It is one element of. And when we were looking at it from, admittedly, just a mental health point of view, we're recognizing that there are whole chunks of the capital stack that are missing at the moment. And there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is actually trying to ensure that the opportunities for those bigger funders to come and invest into are there. And we believe they are, but it does require a bit of market shaping, should we say, and also de-risking. And we're learning so much from what other sectors, particularly green finance, has done. And it is trying to come at it from all those different angles. So yes, making sure that we're bringing different types of funder together to de-risk, but also secondly, bringing together the different types of innovation such that there are options at scale coming out of the very eminent people sat next to me, coming out of the regional centers of excellence. So it is about how do we get the best of the best to a kind of interregional level of scale and then start presenting that in very compelling ways to larger investors is the idea. And I think I think we're ready.
Great, that's perfect. And now let's go to some of those centers. So, Garth, are you ready?
Hi, man. Is this working?
If it doesn't, this seems to be working.
Oh, sorry.
Just keep
My name is Garth Smith. I'm the VP of Business Development and Partnerships at the Ontario Brain Institute. We're from Canada. We fund lots. So we fund research, data. We invest in companies. So we are part of a bit of a revolution going on in Canada right now, where a lot of the disease-based research entities are starting to invest. They're starting to drive innovation, drive commercialization, bridging that first valley of death for companies. And there's a number of us that are doing it. There's Jen here at the Hotchkiss Brain Institute. She'll talk upstairs. And we feel that that's the opportunity for us to de-risk these investments, de-risk follow-on investment, to allow for us to drive this kind of hub of hubs opportunity. And we can't do this on our own. So we're Canadian, we're friendly. So we co-invest, we share deal flow. But we've also, jumped across the ocean. And, we worked with people like Marco in Europe and see how how can we drive this collaborative notion of raising the entire sector? Everybody, I'm a full proponent of the abundance concept. There's lots out there. There's lots of people that are willing to help, and I think that having this type of mentality of everybody gets to share the proceeds and moving forward, I think that's really the only way to do it. And I look forward to working more with Marco and Jules and Charles in the future to drive that mandate.
Happy to go next. So my name is Charles Rodenkirch, and I'm co-founder of NeuroNYC. So for everyone here that's local to New York, we hope that you'll engage with our group after this event. And little background on myself, quick. I have a startup neurotech company, Sharper Sense. We make single-use neurostimulation patches for cognitive enhancement. But I'm also a product of Columbia University, where I did my doctorate. So that really led into me helping form NeuroNYC, because I came out of my doctorate program with a company, and it wasn't until I started talking with VCs that I also started talking with clinicians and also started talking with the end users. And it seemed like it really was a shame that researchers weren't engaging in this ecosystem earlier, and clinicians weren't talking to researchers and telling them what they needed. Investors weren't telling researchers what they would fund. And all this could be informed much better at an early stage, so that we're building technology that really translates to an actual problem. So with NeuroNYC, we're relatively new, but one of the initiatives that we're doing is tracking the ecosystem. So we track all the neurotech companies, labs, investors, and clinics here in New York, and we see those as all serving the end users themselves. And so by tracking them, we make this more transparent so people can interact with these entities more easily. We also try to make the industry more accessible. So we track New York-made neurotech products that are available, clinical trials ongoing in New York, jobs in the industry as well, all to try to make this easier to people to engage with the industry. And the other thing we do is a lot of in-person events like this, where we can drive collaboration and discussions and important things like this. So the idea of taking a hub of hubs that combines these groups, I think, is just putting this to another power level, where we can leverage all the resources across these hubs and source very specific companies for clinicians in California. Maybe there's a company in New York that's making a technology they need. They should be talking to each other instead of being siloed off.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Marco Mohwinckel. A bit about my background. I'm wearing the hat here as president of Tech Tour and the investment program that runs under the Tech Tour umbrella, and I will come to that. But my background is in pharma, in biotech, in medtech. I was an executive at J&J for many years. I was driving innovation there. I then had a startup as well. We ended up listing it on NASDAQ in the mental and brain health space. And I'm an advisor and investor, angel investor right now. And having seen, let's say, innovation from the perspective of a large company as well as from an entrepreneurial standpoint, and seeing a lot of companies right now developing fantastic solutions, I'm both excited and very frustrated about the fact that there's not enough money, let's say, supporting early stage companies in mental and brain health tech in particular. I mean, it's not it's an exciting area, but it's a very underfunded area still, systemically speaking. At the same time, what frustrates me perhaps even more is that there's not enough scale in many of these companies. And I'm wearing, of course, my European hat now, and maybe I'm sure it's a little bit different in the US. But in Europe, I see too many great companies and great technologies not achieving scale. And that led me to dive in or lean into this, and by organizing events or curating events that connect investors to entrepreneurs. And I do that, with Tech Tour, but I also am looking at ways of breaking down barriers to scale. And if you ask any entrepreneur, what they need access to capital, they need access to customers, and they need access to talent or to people that know how to scale companies, okay? So systematically, we're trying to organize gatherings that address some of these barriers. And of course, with the support with our sponsors, our partners across the ocean as well, we want to do more of that. I believe there is the need for a hub of hubs, but I also believe that access to customers is really the biggest problem, because paying customers customers that are open to deploying solutions, embracing innovation. We first need to identify those hubs and activating and mobilizing the stakeholders within those hubs. Now, in Houston, we have good, let's say, momentum, as I've heard before. There are other areas and clusters in Europe where this is happening, but we need to identify the individuals and institutions within these regions that are willing to open their doors and embracing innovations and find concepts and formats that allow for that to happen.
Yep, thank you so much. Having just attended Marco's tech tour meeting a couple of weeks ago in Porto, I can testify that it's a wonderful platform for innovators and investors to meet and get together. Now, I want to pick up on your last point, namely the difficulty of identifying customers. I think that takes us directly to issues of the business model and problems with the demand side for innovation in the neuro space. And that demand side does depend on the business model that is adopted. You can go directly to the customer, or you can work your way through the reimbursement systems, what have you. So should a hub of hubs work out a solution in the advocacy space also that would magnify the type of pressure that the community is putting on payers, governments, what have you, in order to solve these demand bottlenecks? What would be your sense, Marco?
I think there are different. So first of all, I do believe we need to understand demand and activate demand. And we need to start with demand. So a lot of times we start with the solution and the point solution. And yes, there is a specific problem, but we're not asking ourselves, or the companies don't necessarily always ask themselves, how does it fit into the regulatory or reimbursement pathways and so on? And who am I going to sell this to ultimately, right? And I think there's categories of, let's say, buy-side stakeholders. Pharma is one, medtech industry, let's say, is one. Insurance companies and health systems are typically the ones that will ultimately be beneficiaries of these innovations. And I think, yes, we need to start with articulating and aggregating demand much better than we have now. And if you look at it from the demand side, what I hear time and over again is the fragmentation of the supply side. So I have too many companies that are pitching at me similar things. How do I choose? So I think there's a work to be done on aggregating demand, or articulating and aggregating demand, but also somehow vetting supply a little bit more, and maybe aggregating supply as well, meaning a lot of these companies could be better served by collaborating as opposed to competing oftentimes, and showing a united front vis-a-vis potential buyers.
One other problem which is clearly shared is that the pathway from discovery to the market hasn't necessarily gotten much shorter, has it, in the years? So we have an impressive number of breakthroughs coming our way, but it's still a bit of a pathway to go to the market. So can a hub of hubs play a useful role in that space?
Yeah, I think one thing we should look at in the near-term future is the more of the expansion in neurotech for consumer and commercial applications that can both go to the market quicker, as well as unlock a much broader customer base here, and can, leverage, let's say, national, international launches faster than a medical device that, to scale across countries, is going to have to go through many regulatory barriers, et cetera.
Okay, and then there is a question now, where do we start the hub of hubs approach? Do we start from joint agenda setting? Do we start in the pre-competitive space, perhaps, where there's a lot of effort to be shared, because the different innovation centers go through their own processes to get things onto the market, but perhaps these can be financed together and commonly shared before people go to the market. So do you see scope for collaboration in the pre-competitive space? Any takers?
Yeah, I guess I would kind of say it's hard to define what is pre-competitive, because even in academia, professors are keeping abreast things that are going to be breakthrough papers and not sharing that information. So I don't know if there's an early enough stage. I think what we have to think about is how can we make collaboration benefit in competition. So, if you're sharing your data, maybe you're getting access to a global data set that you wouldn't have elsewise. And that way it makes it worth your while to collaborate versus if you're just giving up an advantage.
Just a reflection on the competition, and I'm aware that lots of people are in the audience who'd be very useful to include their points of view. But just on the funder point of view, I've been quite struck at how collaborative funders are being, which is very unusual, right? Especially in a kind of venture type space where normally it is extremely competitive. And I almost feel like the science and the tech is moving so quickly. The potential is so huge. The need is so massive that it's, I don't know, it's a different dynamic to what you'd normally expect. And it is far more collaborative. I think there is that sense of this whole ship could move so far, so quickly, that the slightly normal dynamics aren't applying. And I am an optimistic kind of person, so maybe there is some rosy tinted eyes to this, but there is definitely a sense of collaborative spirit to be harnessed in a way that I don't think is completely typical. So just a reflection, and I get that a little bit from the innovation side as well. That it's very, very collaborative, and almost that sense of excitement as to where it could go.
Yeah, and I just add, I think another place you see that is more mission-driven research in progress. Right. Things where we're focused on Alzheimer's or a certain disease where people feel passionate about that.
Yeah. So for me, this is what the brain capital opportunity brings, right? So the market now becomes something a lot bigger, and I think that where the hubs can really play at it is because we generally try to develop very specific, high threshold interventions for very small populations going through several rounds of approval and testing. And I think that if there was ever a group of people or a group that you can find innovations that will apply to a larger market, more on the wellness side, this is where you're going to find it. I think that you need that no matter what you do in the general sense, as large a population around, you're still going to need some sort of clinical validation. You might not need 3 pharma level clinical trials, but if somebody wants to increase productivity, if somebody wants to increase or decrease the anxiety level in your workers, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be able to find something that can do that because they were able to, really help major depressive disorder. And so that's where I think the opportunity is. We're in Canada, man. We have 110 portfolio companies. We've seen a ton. Everybody here has seen a ton. Pre-competitive would be, I would think we'd have to do a clearinghouse of all the technologies we've seen and not find anything that matches, say, a large corporation's need. Then maybe we can do pre-competitive. But I think there's so much out there that has been de-risked and developed that the opportunity to expand the markets for those highly specialized technologies I think is the real opportunity, near term at least.
So maybe we finish this round with the question about funding. And Jules, I was very much thinking about the Coalition for Mental Health Investment as a point of reference, because you have started quite recently but moved very dynamically forward. So would an approach of this nature help to bring the hubs of innovation together, given also that they often have their own funding models, like OBI, right? Would it help to have this umbrella level funding coalition to aggregate the funding that is needed in the space? And I would like to invite then everyone else to share the final thoughts.
So just to be clear, the coalition itself includes funders but isn't a funding entity, just to be clear. But I think what we are doing is that ecosystem convening coordination bit. So I honestly think what next steps should be that kind of clarification of the concept and then starting to convene people around it. And you're asking all the right questions in terms of where is the immediate practical value add, right? I think we're all agreeing that something like this, we're ready for it. And then it's using our joint platforms to start getting the energy going and convening. So yeah, I've probably just signed myself up for a load of work, haven't I?
That's what I heard.
I'll comment it from it. So if you think about what Tektor has been doing for 25 years, it's a very simple concept, but a very effective one. It's basically identifying a theme, identifying the most active investors in that space. In the Tektor's case, is VCs. Creating a panel, a steering group or an investment committee made up of these venture capitalists that have an active interest in investing in a space, asking them to nominate companies, to review companies together, and to select them following a specific process. And what ends up, and then inviting, the winners and the selected companies to pitch to the collective of investors. What happens is that it's a very effective way of doing the diligence together. Oftentimes, investments get syndicated, and 80% of the companies that participate in Tektor events end up raising money after the event. But not because only of the event, but because these are companies that are investable and that they've done due diligence on together. And so talking about collaboration, they're not competing. Everybody's like on the same boat there. Not everybody, and it's a club deal, but it's a process that is very efficient for investors, and it's a very efficient process for the companies to be exposed to the most active investor group. So I think, yes, collaboration can work, and absolutely, this can happen at an individual level with club deals, but it can happen also at the VC level and the institutional level. So I think it's a model that we should think about exporting or replicating or scaling elsewhere.
Yeah, I just say here in New York, we're home to Wall Street. So there certainly is no shortage of funding here, but we want to draw the attention of that funding towards neurotech, and it hasn't yet. But there's a lot of people coming over from crypto and AI that want to invest in neurotech now. And so that's part of making the neurotech scene here in New York accessible. I've had investors cold email me on my website, and that actually closed from a family office through that. But those family offices shouldn't have to be doing Google searches to find investable companies in neurotech in New York. So how can we make that easier and accessible? And certainly, yeah.
Brilliant. Garth?
Yeah. So that's the opportunity, right? So if there's a hub of hubs that everybody recognizes that is bringing these technologies and these opportunities, they're not going to Google. Hopefully, they come to the hub of hubs. So and the other aspect that the way that we invest in is we're not the smartest group in the world, so we can't tell one EEG company is better than another EEG company. It's just ridiculously hard to do. So what we tell our companies is that if you have a large investor that comes to you and really likes you, and we will help you de-risk your product development in order for you to have a better chance with that large investor. And that makes it pretty idiot-proof in terms of who you're going to invest and who you're not going to invest with. So we feel that there's an opportunity for all the Canadian investors that we do. We really try to make sure that there's some output there. There's something there that's going to fund it way more than we do. And we offer that de-risking opportunity for that entity. Could be family offices, could be a large VC. It could be a large contract with all the psych clinics across Illinois. It doesn't matter. All we are trying to do is make sure that that entity gets to the point where they're actually going to the next inflection point. And so the brain capital side now is the same methodology. If there's somebody that has a need in a large corporation for productivity, then we're going to try to find that technology, seed it, get the metrics that that large partner needs to see in order for them to move forward.
Great. Well, what I heard in conclusion from all of you is, first of all, an endorsement of the general idea of the Hub of Hubs. of course, as we know from past experience, the devil lies in the details. So we need to work it out more practically. And but I also understood from what you said that your plea is more for a nimble type of platform, the one that would genuinely help the different innovation centers, whether it is identifying customers, aggregating demand, what have you, or having more streamlined access to funding, right? So there is homework to be done, but the good news is that the idea has passed your verification test here in the panel, and we have now work to do on the details. So thank you so much, Jules, Garth, Charles, and Marco. This was our concluding panel here downstairs. So many thanks for your support today, and see you all on the 8th floor.